Okay, perfect. Thanks, Nadia, for a kind introduction. Thanks for the opportunity to represent Ericsson in this one-day hybrid seminar. So what I'm going to talk in this first session is on the advances in telecom AI especially. So the title for my talk is Enter a World of Limitless Connectivity. I'll demystify what does that mean. So if you see the outline of my talk is we are trying to establish the need for limitless connectivity. Then what are the technologies empowering these networks towards 2030? So as the 7 years from now, so what are the things we are working to empower the networks? I'm not touching the 6G part of it. I know there is another session lined up for you on the 6G, but I'll try to excite you what are the surrounding technologies which is helping us to enter this limitless connectivity. I'll give some examples of what we are working on and how the world is going to change and what is the basis for AI ML in this transformation journey. I'll take the backdrop of telecom, Ericsson being the telecom organization. Then I'll cover a couple of use cases which may be interesting for you. And towards the end, we'll talk about machine reasoning and what is the role it is playing beyond machine learning. So I hope I will have a few minutes towards the end to have some question and answers. I'll try to wind up within 20 minutes so that we'll get some time for our Q&A session as well, right? This is just an introduction in terms of Ericsson, as you know, it may be as a telecom company, as you may be knowing, but we do have AI-focused attention on this. What does that mean is we have a horizontal, which is called as Global AI Accelerator. So where we have 250 plus data scientists and engineers across the globe, where we are trying to accelerate the execution of the strategy using AI for Ericsson. And how do you build the critical mass of competence to scale up our AI capabilities and delivery? At the end, how do you innovate and demonstrate this thought leadership, not just only in the Ericsson, but across the industry, right? So with that, let's dive into the topic for today. So where we are talking about the technologies empowering the networks towards 2030. So what we are referring here is actually, given the world's evolving needs and fundamental technological developments, what this really mean for a network, right? So we are trying to depict it in 4 dimensions of network evaluation. The first one is limitless connectivity. What does that mean for us is we are talking about flexible network topologies which will provide coverage everywhere and deliver extreme performance, right? Right now, if you take the 5G, which is on the way in a couple of countries, is not just only the one which you see on the 4G network outdoor, but we are talking about indoor enterprise networks as well, right? So the second one is the trustworthy systems. What does that mean is everywhere what we are building the different systems now, we need to make them secure. And maybe trusted AI is, if I'm talking from an AI angle, but a trustworthy system is a bigger umbrella where we talk about assurance of this mission and business critical processes. How do you talk about the confidential computing? What we are referring it here is as building the trustworthy systems is both hardware and software combinations. The third point is a cognitive network. What does that mean is, can we build the networks with a self-learning capabilities? Or can we build a network with a self-healing capability? So those are the things we are talking on the cognitive network. Machine reasoning is one such approach, which we'll talk towards the end. The fourth one is network compute fabric. What does that mean is a continuous execution environment is required. It's not just only the cloud, whatever we are referring in a telecom, the RAN, radio access network, core network. We are trying to design to handle massive amounts of data. Just to give a small example, from the towers within your own city, you talk about the 4G and 5G kind of a towers. With the thousands of these towers, we will get GBs of data every 15-minute interval, right? You can see the volume we are talking about to handle those data points. So the network evaluation on these aspects is really driven by 4 drivers. I'll give a snapshot of all 4 of them so that it will excite you what we are referring in this evolution process. First one is a digitized programmable world. What does that mean is you are talking about a digital twin, right? Whatever you are referring, whether it is a healthcare system or a telecom system or a complex, any network system. So if you create a digital twin, that will help you to replicate the actions, and it will save a lot of effort and money when you talk about these evolutions, right? The next one is connected intelligent machines. Right now, whatever we are referring it to is, okay, human talking to a machine, machine talking to a human, but going forward, it may be systems of systems, right? Which consists of a lot of intelligent machines powered by AI, right? It may not be only human generated traffic, maybe machines generating a lot of traffic as well. So you might have heard of Internet of Things as one of the standard acronym IoT, right? So, but when we talk about Internet of Senses, it is just not just seeing and hearing, which you already see, which we are already experiencing. What we are talking about is, can you smell, taste, and touch? Just like our 5 sensor organs, right? There are a lot of development people are talking about it. Hopefully, it will be in reality by 2030. So the last one in that is connected sustainable world. So what does that mean is always we need to talk about this minimizing the environmental footprint, whatever the advances we do. So I do have a separate slide on that. Even though that we are evolving into the new technological areas, how we are keeping in back of our mind to minimize the environmental footprint, right? So with this background, so let me walk you through a few examples so that you can realize and maybe relate to your own research on why this is important or how you can relate it, right? So the first one is mobile networks of future. So in every walk of life, what we mean by that in the mobile networks of futures is we need to make these networks actually the dynamic, energy efficient, highly intelligent and trustworthy. Etc. includes the security aspects as well. Right? So the developments, what I'm going to talk about now is not just only powered by only AI. So it's a combination of new technologies in terms of 5G, IT, and AI aspects. So what are the 4 examples I'm referring here is first one is unlimited learning, right? When you are trying to enter the world of limitless connectivity, the first advantage is to have the unlimited learning. So anywhere from the world, you can access to the real resources and make it happen. So these kind of webinars or conferences is one way to look at. But the example I'm referring here is one unique project we are doing from Ericsson with UNICEF. So what we are doing here is actually our aim is to connect millions of schools, which we are working from 2019 onwards. In the last 3 years, if you see, as part of GIGA project, we are able to map nearly 1 million schools into the internet world. Okay, even though there are billions of kids attending some form of class every day, but there are 260 millions of children who are not receiving the school education. So this kind of connectivity will definitely boost up the economy of their own countries as well, right? So there's a limitless connectivity can help unlimited learning is the first application I'm referring here. The second one is on the entertainment side. So what does that mean is right now you have seen a lot of advances in augmented reality, extended reality in the AI. Take your own favorite game, whether it is football, basketball, cricket, any whichever is popular in your own country, right? The what experience you will see from the ground is different from the live which you are seeing from TV, right? But now with the advances in the 5G and this augmented reality point of it, you can blur that boundaries. And in fact, if you take this particular picture, a spectator at a football match could see the live data about the game and what the players are talking about or the replay. So this is the kind of a experience which you can take from an entertainment point of it with the advances in the networks. If you take a different angle from a redefining the business point of it, you are changing the paradigm of manufacturing here. I'm taking the example of manufacturing, but it can be any other industry as well. Okay, so one example here is a smart factory. So the factories of the future, we are referring it as AI-enabled autonomous robots will work even in the dark. That way we can save the energy as well. So by doing this kind of a smart factory, we are able to make 65% reduction in the material handling, around 25% of indoor water usage is less. We are talking about 25% more energy efficient. This is just a sample for you to excite that there's a lot of advantage we can take from the technological advancement to redefine the industry which you are familiar with, maybe in this case, manufacturing. The other example which you can relate is an autonomous cars. So the future of connected vehicles, it has a lot of advances from AI, sensors and actuation, and it is coming into reality. So technically, a lot of advances happened on the autonomous cars, right? So the last one, before I take up the AI use cases, is on the pioneering the sustainable future from a energy point of view. As I mentioned earlier as well, whatever the developments we are talking about, whether it is the advanced deep learning models we develop or the new technologies we develop, we want to be carbon neutral by 2050, right? So even the technologies such as 5G, AI, and IoT are being utilized today as essential drivers of decarbonization. Okay, we want to break that energy curve while we even from the network perspective, right? So with that first part, let me go a little more deep into the aspect of what do we mean by this technological evolution and how AI/ML is playing the role in telecom. If you see this one, so we are talking about different layers in the telecom. You can say right from application layer till the physical network. The purpose to show this kind of a picture is AI is playing the role in every aspect of it, be it in the OSS, BSS. What does that mean is, as a user, you know, okay, how the billing and charging, how the operations are taken care, that is at a green part of it. It's more at an application layer. Whereas AI is playing the role in case, even in the case of how do you talk about access related things, or maybe placement of these cells, or the radio network itself, and even the core transport, different this telecom layers. I'm going to take some use cases for you in the upcoming slides. Similarly, we talk about the Ericsson cloud infrastructure. How do they give the power of AI and even the network services point of it, right? So we are going to touch upon a few of them, not all the applications in the interest of time. So let me talk about these AI use cases, which is nothing but maybe some use cases of automation and optimization. Okay. So the network planning and it starts from network planning and operations. What does that mean is, how do you really plan and design the network? At which place these 5G cells or the 4G cells, it may based on what kind of access you have in your country, you can visualize those applications, right? Similarly, if there are a lot of issues which you raised, whether it's an application layer or the connectivity issues, how the ticket handling and resolution is going to happen. Similarly, core network and data center point of it, how the incident detection and resolution is happening. Are we using predictive analytics to talk about? Have you made some of those applications as self-healing? That means when the issue occurred, okay, let me identify in a predictive way and try to fix it as well, right? Similarly, when we are talking about different applications at energy efficiency level and transport optimization, there are a lot of use cases which we have solved. At the end, the edge devices, right? We are talking about not just only the towers, what you see outside, which is providing us 4G or 5G access, but there are a lot of other edge devices which can help us beyond the cloud to do this analytics, connectivity, and security aspects, right? So maybe it is looking like we are touching the surface, but let's talk about few specific use cases which we have done and which may be relevant for you in a different dimension to look at. Some applications may look at a system monitoring level. The standard ones are something like anomaly detection, some root cause identification. Even while we are talking about root cause identification, there are a lot of AI aspects also coming into picture. We call it as causal AI. How do you discover the causal aspects of it? Causation is different from correlation, right? How do you really establish this RCA, root cause analysis? How we can do the predictive maintenance, right? So there are a lot of interesting applications which we do with for different telecom operators, including a lot of different countries near Libya as well, right? So what about this managed services? What we talk about is how do you really talk about identifying, classifying the ticket? Can some of the tickets can be auto fix kind of a thing in the automation mode of it? Then what about the churn prediction, right? So churn prediction means the customers keep coming and going. So it costs a lot of money for the operators if the churn prediction happens. Can we predict in advance and give them a path? Okay, these are the steps if you take, it may help you to reduce the churn prediction, right? Similarly, how do you assure the service level agreements? These are all related to the managed services. Even if you're not coming from telecom background, the similar aspects from your own industry, you can talk about how do you really automate the aspects of it. Maybe your own customers, how do you predict the churn? The learnings are not very specific to the telecom. You can apply beyond the telecom as well. The last segment, which is a little more complex, is in terms of how do you make the networks intelligent, where simple methods we are talking on the system monitoring, but whereas self-healing, real self-healing with the root cause analysis is coming under the self-healing aspects. How do you do the dynamic optimization? How do we do the automated network design? So these are all the aspects which we are referring in an intelligent networks. So I'll give you a glimpse of few more use cases to convince you what is the power we are bringing by using AI ML by taking 2-3 use cases. And then we will talk about the last point of machine reasoning. So if you talk about that autonomic incident management, if you see there are thousands of these incidents keep coming every day, a lot of alerts keep coming, but all may not be very important for us, right? So when we are able to automate this particular incident management, we are able to see a power of data reduction as close to 99% of incidents are not really the alerts which the human or an engineer needs to pay attention to. Hardly 96 incidents out of 15,000 alarms are really the important ones which we need to pay the attention. Okay, so by reducing the amount to that, we have eased the job of the network operator and still fixing the issues in a more efficient way. Okay? So that's we are able to use it for multiple clients or operators across the world. Similarly, when we talk about the visual intelligence, new applications, you may think, okay, the first application, Sunil, maybe we do that kind of a similar applications, but the results may vary a little bit, right? But the one which we are referring here is a new use cases. These are happening only because of the advances in the drone images. Just imagine the towers, what you are seeing here, right? So these are the towers which are outdoor and exposed to the weather, which is actually providing you and me the network connectivity of 4G or 5G, right? So how do you really maintain in a new way with the advances in drones and AI? So what are the applications we are referring is, how do you identify these cable bending? Too much of cable bending will reduce the signal. Exposed parts will reduce the signal, right? So these are the, how do you ensure the config management was done correctly? So we have done a lot of these applications with the computer vision, right? So one application here is, okay, if you identify the exposed parts here, right? So we are able to get these images from the drones, identify or detect object detection kind of computer vision methods we are applied here, and able to make some decisions when the person is really climbing that particular tower and able to see these images, then and there he can fix it, whether he has connectivity or not. That app will help the particular engineer to make sure that inspection is complete, right? So these are the real world applications which we are referring it to with the advances point of it, so that the predictive maintenance can happen. So take example of Tripoli itself, maybe thousands of the towers may be there across the city, tens of thousands of towers. And we talk about the drone images to be being collected and then analyze with the computer vision, identify where the real issues are there, and assign the network engineer to fix it proactively, right? So with that, let's come to the last part of the aspect of our talk, where machine reasoning. A lot of you may be familiar, a lot of people may be familiar with the machine learning aspect of it, which people are talking about machine learning, deep learning advances, whereas the machine reasoning is actually a symbolic knowledge which applies logical techniques such as inference, deduction on non-numerical data like facts, relations, rules, which can complement, right? It's more like your knowledge management, right? Or creating a graph kind of a neural network. It is little different from graph neural networks, but we can talk about as a graph ML or some kind of a symbolic knowledge, which you can couple with the machine learning to do an interesting applications and make these networks much more self-powered kind of a thing. What example I can give there is if you see the next slide. So let's say business intent is something like, okay, I need to improve the network quality. That is very business driven decision point or maybe business decision problem. If I break down into smaller network level KPIs, something like resolving conflicting recommendations, making some smart judgment, what kind of KPIs will help me to improve the network quality. So you can take the data from here and apply the machine learning aspects. We can reduce the business intent and understand, use the knowledge base from the machine reasoning so that it's go hand in hand, both machine learning and machine reasoning. There is a business intent, which we want to improve the network quality. The knowledge base will help us to bifurcate the problem into network level KPIs, predicting something. Let's use the ML algorithm from the data which is coming from telecom stack to get those interpretation. Finally, what value we are bringing on the table is the recommended actions with the couple of machine learning and machine reasoning of it. So these kind of things will help us to take the next set of applications, whether it is in 6G or 5G or distributed cloud kind of a thing. And even there are good applications from Industry 4.0 and even immersive media point of it. So with the available time, I'm able to touch upon only a few aspects are here. And with that, we are trying to realize the intent-based autonomous systems. And finally, in summary of it, we are touched upon the limitless connectivity and how the technologies empower the networks towards 2030. I talked about few applications on that. And I covered how AI ML is transforming the journey in telecom with a few use cases and touched upon machine reasoning. And I request you to explore different opportunities in your own domain, how machine learning and machine reasoning can play an important role to solve interesting problems. Most of the points what I talked about, there are a lot of interesting material for you to consume. So with that, I will thank the organizers for the opportunity. And I'm open for a few questions if time permits. So there is a question here, how can the domain expert input his knowledge? Yeah, Ahmad, is an interesting question from a machine reasoning point of it. If I go back to that particular slide, so there are a lot of tools and techniques to prepare the knowledge base, or you can think of an ontology from a natural language processing as well, right? So depending on the knowledge is in the what form, is it in the table form or is it in a document form? So there are different tools and techniques available to create that knowledge base and to use it as well. Does it answer your point, Ahmed? Any other questions?
Any questions from you? Maybe I will ask mine.
Yes, please.
What's the state, I would say, of the deployment of AI at Ericsson? Are we getting for the end of the end-to-end, let's say, AI deployment soon, or what's the state?
Yeah, so I talked about one example here, right? So whatever the examples I'm referring it to here, these are the real world deployment point of it. And what you see now, even to give a small number, let's say a sample of 100 use cases, if you are really working out, some sample of them will be at a POC level, maybe let's say 20-30% of it. Then once we prove that POC, down the line, our aim is to go into the real deployments. So a good chunk of the percentage of the projects are going to the different operators across the world for the real deployments. And if you heard of the term ML ops, right, machine learning operations is also becoming a priority for us, because the developing the model is not just enough, but end-to-end model development, maintenance, including the ML ops, we are taking care and then showing the real value by deploying the models. Hundreds of models which we deployed so far.